Hey guys, welcome back to the channel again. So this is the Arch Linux base installation for NVR systems. Let's get going. So here we go. I booted up the machine from the ISO and we are here at the boot prompt. So I'll just hit the first option here to boot up Arch Linux, and it's gonna take a moment to do this. So I'll be back when it's done. I'll be connecting via SSH so that I can go back to my bigger terminal, and I'll meet you back there in a second. So here we go. I logged in via SSH. Now I have a bigger terminal and bigger fonts. It's easier also for you guys to see. So let's get started. The first thing you might want to do if you don't have a US keyboard, as the Arch ISO boots up with a US keyboard, is to change your keyboard layout. So to do that, let's type in locale ctl list-keymaps, then a space and then a pipe symbol, and then we use a grep function to narrow down the search. So in my case, I have a Swiss keyboard which has the connotation CH. So I'll type in CH in my case. You will replace this, of course, with your keyboard connotation and hit enter. So as you can see here, I have several results, and the one I'm looking for is the first one saying DE_CH-Latin1. So we load this in the system by typing in load keys and then the string we found. So in my case is DE_CH-Latin1 and hit enter. So this is done. We can now clean up the terminal and let's check for our internet connection. So I'll type in IP space A. And I have an IP here ending with 141 because I have an Ethernet cable connected to my PC. If you don't have an Ethernet cable connected, you can connect through Wi-Fi. If you type in Wi-Fi-menu and hit enter, you will see a list of networks. You can select yours, enter your password, and you'll be connected as well. This works in most cases. However, if you have certain Wi-Fi cards like Broadcom Wi-Fi cards, you might run into problems. In this case, it's useful to search the Arch Wiki to have more information about the Broadcom Wi-Fi cards. Let's pull up the page here I already prepared. And here you can follow through what you can do in case you cannot connect to your Wi-Fi. In my experience, the problem is normally the Arch ISO tries to find out the right module for your Wi-Fi card, but sometimes doesn't catch the right one. So it's a matter of blacklisting some drivers when you boot up your Arch ISO. And the way to do that is when you see the Arch ISO boot prompt, you can hit E on your keyboard and add to the end of the line the module you want to blacklist. So for example, here in the Arch Wiki, it says very clearly first to find out which Wi-Fi card you have so that you can identify your model. And depending on the module you have, you can follow the instructions here on the wiki to see which driver you might have to blacklist when you boot up the ISO. Once you manage to boot up the machine with the Wi-Fi card working, you can install then the Broadcom-VL package, which is proprietary, and then you will have your driver installed when you boot up your Arch installation. So let's close this window up and let's delete this command here and clean up the terminal. So now that we have an IP, we can synchronize the network time protocol. So we'll type in time, date, ctl, set-ntp, true, and hit enter. And let's clean up the terminal. And now let's configure our mirror list. The mirror list is a list of servers from where we download packages to install Arch Linux. So to do this, we need a package called Reflector, but before we need to synchronize the servers. So to do this, we'll type in pacman -syyyy and hit enter. So now that we synchronize the servers one time, we can download Reflector by typing in pacman -s and then Reflector and hit enter. Proceed with the installation here by hitting enter, and Reflector is installed. Now let's clean up the terminal and use Reflector to create our mirror list. So we'll do this by typing in Reflector -c for country. You can put in here the country where you are. In my case, it's Switzerland, so I'll type in Switzerland. And then -a for the age, that means since how many hours the servers have been updated. In my case, I'm going to go for 6 hours, and I wouldn't recommend you to go less than 6 hours because otherwise you might not find any server. And then --sort, because we need to sort these servers by speed. In this case, is rate. And then --save, because we have to save this information in our mirror list directory, which is /etc/pacman.d/mirrorlist, and hit enter. So now we can resynchronize the servers one more time. So we'll type in pacman -syyyy and hit enter. And we have now our servers available. So let's clean up the terminal and let's take care of our disk. Let's type in lsblk. And you can see here I have a disk called VDA. This is a virtual machine and it's 150 gigabytes. Your disk name might change. It might be SDA, or if you have an NVMe drive, it might be NVMe 0 and 1. It really depends on the configuration of your system. So we need to first partition this disk. So there are many ways on how we can partition an MBR system, but I'm gonna go in this tutorial with the standard version, which is a DOS disk label with a swap partition and a root partition. If you choose to go with a GPT label on an MBR system, I highly recommend you check if this is compatible with your BIOS, because some computers won't be able to boot a GPT disk on an MBR system. So I'm gonna go with the DOS label because this is the most common case with MBR systems. So to do this, I will type in fdisk and then the disk path, so /dev/VDA, and hit enter. Now the disk label was created automatically, so I'm fine with this. So we don't need to create any boot partition with this scheme. So what I'm gonna do now is to create first a swap partition. So I'll type in n for new and hit enter. And it's a primary partition, so I'll type in p and hit enter. Partition default number 1, so that's fine, so I hit enter here. I'll accept also the first sector as a default, so I just hit enter. And the last sector defines basically the size of the partition. So the rule of thumb is to make the swap partition double the size of your RAM. So this virtual machine has 2 gigabytes of RAM. So I'm going to make the swap partition 4 gigabytes. So I'll type in +4G and hit enter. Now it created a partition type Linux, which we have to change. So let's type in T for type and hit enter. So I don't know the code of the swap partition. And to check this, we can type in capital L and hit enter. And we can see here the Linux swap type is 82. So we can type in now 82 and hit enter. And you can see here change type of partition Linux to Linux swap, which is exactly what we wanted. Now I clean up the terminal and let's create our root partition by typing in n for new and hit enter. It's a primary partition, so we can accept the default here by hitting enter. Partition number 2 is also fine, so I'll accept the default by hitting enter. And the same goes for this first sector, so I'll just hit enter here. And again, the last sector defines the size of the partition. So in my case, I just want to create one root partition here. But if you want to create also a home partition, which is optional, you can create, for example, a 30 or 40 gigabytes root partition, depending on the size of your disk. And then you can use the same process to create a home partition. In my case, though, I'm going to go with one partition only, so I'll accept the defaults here by hitting enter. Now we need to write these changes to the disk, so we'll type in W and hit enter. And the partition table has been written to the disk. So let's clean up the terminal and type in lsblk again. And we can see our two partitions here. We have VDA1, which is our swap partition, and VDA2, which is our root partition. If you created also a home partition, you will have most probably here something like SDA3 or NVMe 0 and 1 P3. So now that we created the partition, we need to format them. Let's begin with the swap partition. And to do this, we'll type in mkswap and then the partition name, which is /dev/VDA1 and hit enter. Now we can activate the swap already by typing in swap on and then /dev/VDA1 and hit enter. And now we can also format VDA2, which is our root partition, by typing in mkfs dot, and now we need to choose the file system type we want to use. So in this tutorial, I'm going to go with ext4 because it's still one of the most popular formats. So I'll type in ext4 and then the partition path, which is /dev/VDA2 and hit enter. There you go. We can clean up the terminal and type in again lsblk. And now we can mount our partitions. We need to actually mount only VDA2, which is our root partition, as the swap partition doesn't have any mount point. So let's mount our root partition by typing in mount /dev/VDA2 /mount, which is our installation directory, and hit enter. So let's clean up the terminal one more time and type in lsblk to see our mount points. So we have VDA1 here, which is our swap partition and doesn't have any mount point. And we have VDA2, which is mounted under the /mount directory. So everything looks good. And we can proceed by installing the base system. So to do this, we'll type in pacstrap and then /mount. This is our installation directory. And then we can type in base, the base package, and then Linux, which is going to install the latest Linux kernel. If you want to install the LTS version of this kernel, you can type in actually linux-lts. But in my case, I'm going to go with the latest kernel, so I'll just install Linux and then linux-firmware. Now, if you have an Intel processor, what you can install also is Intel-Ucode, which is providing some extra firmware for your processor. And if you have an AMD processor, you can replace this, of course, with AMD-Ucode. So I'm on a virtual machine, I don't need this package, so I can delete it. And we need still to install also an editor, which we'll need later. In my case, I'm going to choose Nano, and then we can just hit enter. So here it's going to take a moment to download and install the packages, and I'll be back when it's done. There you go, the packages are installed, so we can clean up the terminal. And now we can proceed by generating the file system table with this command, gen fstab -U and then /mount. So we want to generate the file system table which is containing our mount points with the -U option, which means we want to create this file system table with the UUIDs of the partitions. Then we append this information by typing twice the major den symbol to /mount /etc/fstab and hit enter. Now let's have a look at the fstab file to see what's in there. So let's type in cat /mount /etc/fstab and hit enter. And you can see here we have our root partition with its UUID, its mount point, file system type, options, and file system checks. And the same goes for our swap partition, which doesn't have actually any mount point, but it has to be in the file system table. So everything looks good. We can clean up the terminal and move into our installation by leaving the installer. And to do this, we'll type in arch-chroot and then our installation directory, which is /mount, and hit enter. There you go, the login prompt changed, so we can clean up the terminal. And we can proceed by working on our localization stuff, and let's begin with the time zone. So to find out the time zone, we need to tell the system, we can use this command, time date ctl list -time zones, and then a pipe symbol, and then we're going to use again the grep function to narrow down the search. So the city closest to me is Zurich, so I'll type in Zurich in my case. Of course, you replace this accordingly, and hit enter. So I have only one result here, which is Europe/Zurich. So this is what I have to tell the system. And I'll do this by typing in ln-sf. So we need to create a soft link from this information, which is under /user/share/zone-info/ our time zone. So in my case is Europe/Zurich. And we'll link this information to /etc/local time and hit enter. Now we can synchronize the hardware clock to the system clock, so we can type in hwclock --sys to hc and hit enter. There you go. Now we can work on our locale.gen file. So let's type in nano /etc/locale.gen and hit enter. So here we need to basically look for our locale. You can select as many locales as you want to. In my case, I'm just going to go with English US, which is down here. And we need to select the one which has UTF-8. And we just uncomment this line here by deleting the hashtag. And then hit Ctrl-O and Enter to save the file and Ctrl-X to exit the editor. Now we can generate the locales by typing in locale-gen and hit Enter. Now we need to put this string into the locale.com file. And to do this, we will type in echo, double quotes, and then lang, all capital letters, equal the string we chose before. So en_us.utf-8, double quote again, and we append this information to /etc/locale.conf and hit enter. Now, if you choose also different key map at the beginning of the video, we need to put this key map also into the vconsole.com file. So let's do this by typing in echo, double quotes, then key map, all capital letters, equal the key map we chose at the beginning. So in my case, it was de_ch-latin1, double quotes, and we append this information to /etc/vconsole.conf and hit enter. Now let's clean up the terminal and let's work on the host name. So we'll type in nano /etc/hostname and hit enter. We can give a name to our machine here basically. So I'll call mine arch mbr, and then hit Ctrl O and enter to save the file, and Ctrl X to exit the editor. Now we need to work also on the host file, so let's type in nano/etc/hosts and hit enter. Scroll down to the empty space and type in the IPv4 address, which is 127.0.0.1, a tab, and then localhost. Then in the next line, ::1, which is the IPv6 address, then tab, and then localhost again. And in the last line, we'll type in 127.0.1.1, a tab, and then our host name. So in my case is archmbr.local domain, then a tab again, and the host name again. So in my case is archmbr. You replace this accordingly. And then Ctrl O and enter to save the file, and Ctrl X to exit the editor. Now we can give the root user a password, so we can type in passwd and hit enter. Enter the new password and retype it. And this is done. So let's clean up the terminal and go ahead and install our grub bootloader and some other packages. So let's type in pacman-s. The first package is grub, our bootloader. Then we have some networking packages. The first one is network manager. And we can install also network-manager-applet and some wireless packages. The first one is wireless_tools. We have also WPA_supplicant and also dialog. You can install also OS-prober. If you decide to install another system later, this will be useful. Two packages also for working with FAT file systems. One is mtools and the other one is DOS fstools. Two development packages. One is base-devel and also linux-headers. If you installed the Linux LTS kernel before, you might want to install here the LTS headers as well by adding -LTS. In my case, I don't need to do this. Then I want to install also Git, which will help us installing Yay later for packages from the Arch user repository. Then I want to install also Reflector to have it available in my installation. Then some packages for the Bluetooth adapters. One is Blues and also Blues-utils. Our printing system, CUPS. And I'm going to install also Pulse Audio. And I want to install also Pulse Audio-Bluetooth. And also Pulse Audio-Equalizer. And also Pulse Audio-Jack. So these Pulse Audio packages might come with a desktop environment you might decide to install later, but in some cases, like installing, for example, Window Manager, they are not installed by default. So I'm just going to install them in the base system, and if you decide later to install a desktop environment, they're just going to be skipped. So there are still three packages we can install. One is xdg-utils and xdg-user-dirs for user directories. And the last package, which is optional, is OpenSSH. So this is optional for you guys. If you want to install this, you can go ahead and do that. This is helpful if you want to connect to your computer via SSH. In my case, I definitely need this to connect back to the terminal afterwards. And then we can just hit enter. Accept the defaults by hitting enter. And now we can accept the installation here by hitting enter. So it's going to take a moment to download and install the packages, and I'll be back when it's done. There you go, the packages are installed, so we can clean up the terminal and install our grub bootloader. So let's do this by typing in grub-install. So we define the target machine, so we'll type in --target equal. For the MBR system, we'll need to use the i386-PC. And then we define our disk name, not the partition's name, the disk name, which in my case is /dev/VDA. You replace this, of course, accordingly to your disk, and then we can just hit enter. And there you go. Now we can create the grub configuration file by typing in grub-mkconfig-o. So the output goes under /boot/grub/grub.cfg and hit enter. And this is done. So let's clean up the terminal and enable a few services before we restart the machine. And the first one is Network Manager, which will allow us to have internet when we boot up the machine. So let's type in systemctl enable network manager, and hit enter. So the next, we are going to activate Bluetooth. So let's type in system CTL enable Bluetooth and hit enter. We can also activate our printing system by typing in system CTL enable org.caps.capsd and hit enter. And let's clean up the terminal. And the last service we can enable if you installed SSH is SSHD. So we can do this by typing in system CTL enable SSHD and hit enter. There you go. Let's clean up the terminal and create a new user for the system. Let's type in user add -m capital G and then wheel for the group. I'll explain this in a second. And then the username, which is in my case my name, and hit enter. So we told the system here to create a new user called Hermano, which belongs to the wheel group with a home directory, and that's the M option. We'll use the wheel group to give Hermano sudo privileges, and we'll do this in a second, but before we need to give this user a password. So we'll type in passwd and then the username and hit enter. Type in the new password and repeat it. Now let's type in editor equal nano and then sudo and hit enter. Now we need to scroll down the file here with Ctrl V until we find the wheel group we talked about. And there are two of those. Be careful here, we need to choose the one which has on the line all equal all. And we uncomment this line by deleting the hashtag. And now it means every user which is member of the wheel group will have sudo privileges. Then we can hit Ctrl O and enter to save the file and Ctrl X to exit the editor. So let's exit now the installation and return to the ISO installer by typing exit. Now we can unmount all the partitions by typing umount -a and hit enter. And now we can reboot our machine by typing reboot and hitting enter. And I'll go back now to my virtual machine here and go full screen. And there you go. We have our grab bootloader here, so the installation was successful. So we can go ahead and boot the system here by hitting enter. And now we can log in with our username. So in my case, it's my name here and the password. And now we are logged into the system. So I want to go back to my other terminal. So I need to check my IP. So I'll type in IP space A. And I see I have an IP ending with 142. So let me log out of my virtual machine here and go back to my terminal, clean it up and type in SSH and then Hermano at 192.168.122.142 and hit enter. Accept the fingerprint, enter my password, and now I'm connected. So I clean up the terminal and we can continue the installation. So I have an IP because again, I have an Ethernet cable connected to my computer. But if you have Wi-Fi right now, you can type in NMTUI and hit enter. Go to activate a connection. And here you will see a list of your networks. You can select yours, enter the password, and you'll have an IP as well. So let's log out from here and clean up the terminal. So it's time to install our graphic cards, and we are going to do this in a two-step process. So we have three scenarios. We have scenarios for Intel card, AMD cards, and NVIDIA cards. So if you have an Intel card, you can type in now sudo pacman-s, and the package is xf86-video-intel. However, if you plan to install the Cinnamon desktop environment, the ArchWiki recommends not to install this package for Intel cards as the Cinnamon desktop environments might freeze. So what you can do if you have an Intel card, it's not installing anything and let the Mesa package, which is already included in the kernel, to take care of your graphic card. So again, if you want to install Cinnamon, don't install this package. You can let the Mesa driver take care of that. If you want to install other desktop environments, you can definitely install this package. If you have an AMD card, you would replace Intel with AMD GPU. And if you have an NVIDIA card, you can replace the whole thing here with NVIDIA and also NVIDIA-utils. You could also install NVIDIA-settings, and this would work for most cards released from 2011 onwards. Now, with NVIDIA cards, it's always a little bit tricky. There is not one solution for every card. So let's have a look again at our browser. I prepared already another website here, which is the NVIDIA website on the ArchWiki. So the first thing which we have to be careful is to always avoid installing drivers from the NVIDIA website because they are not going to be updated. It's always advisable to install drivers via Pacman because when there is an update, then this driver is going to be updated as well. So the instructions on the wiki are useful if you are installing the Linux and the Linux LTS packages. And the first thing, if you have problems with your NVIDIA card, is to find out which card you have. So by running this command here, I'll post a link to the Arch wiki down on the video description, is to find out which model you have. Once you know which model you have, you can select the necessary driver. So for example, you can use the Nouveau Wiki's codename page to do that, or you can also use the legacy card list for NVIDIA, or by visiting the NVIDIA driver download site. Once you know which card you have, you can select the driver you need. So for example, as I was saying before, from cards that are around 2010 and later, you can install the NVIDIA package as well as NVIDIA utils and NVIDIA settings. If your card is from around 2010 and 11 and it belongs to this family of cards, you'll have to install the NVIDIA 390XX DKMS package, which is in the Arch user repository. And to install this, we'll have to use Yay, which we'll install in a second. If you have cards which are older than 2010, then you'll have to look at the unsupported drivers down here. So let's click it, and we have it here. So basically, if you have a GeForce 300 series or older, NVIDIA doesn't offer any more drivers for your card. That means that this driver, although you can still install them, they will not work with the current version of Xorg. In this case, the Arch Wiki recommends you to use the Nouveau driver, which supports the old cards and also the current version of Xorg. Of course, the Nouveau driver might not be able to perform as well as NVIDIA drivers, but that's the compromise. If you don't want to use the Nouveau driver, you can still install the NVIDIA 340XX DKMS driver from the AUR, but then your last supported version of Xorg will be the 1.20. So there is no one solution that fits everything for the NVIDIA cards, and the Arch Wiki here is really well documented. It's very important to find out which card you have to decide which driver you might want to install. So let's close this up, and let's clean up this command here. So if you need to install some packages from the Arch user repository to install your NVIDIA card, we need to install first Yay. So we installed Git before, which will help us do that. So let's type in git clone and then https://aur.archlinux.org/yay.git and hit enter. Now a new Yay directory was created, so we need to move in there. So we can type in cd and then Yay and hit enter. Now we can build Yay by typing in make pkg-si and then package build, all capital letters, and hit enter. We enter our sudo password, and we can proceed installing the dependency here by hitting enter. And this is going to take a moment, so I'll be back when it's done. So now we are ready to install Yay, so we can just press enter here. And Yay is now installed. Now let's clean up the terminal. If you need to install one of those packages from the Arch user repository, you can do this by typing in now yay-s and then the package that you need to install. So from this point on, it's a matter of deciding which desktop environment you want to install, and I'm going to do this in subsequential videos. So this video is 1B Arch Linux base install on MBR, and I'm going to name the desktop environments and window manager videos 2, 3, and so on. And I'll create a playlist where you have all those videos together. But this is going to do it for the base install on an MBR system, and now you can go ahead and install the desktop environment of your choice. So this is it. This is the base install of Arch Linux on an MBR system. Now you can go ahead on the playlist and select the desktop environment or the window manager you would like to install. I hope you liked the video, guys. If you did, please hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Subs always helps us out. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by visiting our Patreon website, or you can donate via PayPal through our website as well. Thanks you so much for watching the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.